shock, surprise, spooked to find out something like adrenochrome exists and can be purchased. The situation is simple in facts. You've heard of it. I'm still talking about adrenochrome. And no one denies that there are people in power that have the money that ingest adrenochrome. Tunnels from Tom Hanks' house have crept into the story in the last few years. Weird world we live in. Always, only, sometimes, in sundry times, some are moved by the Most High Spirit of whom the Bible speaks. Always, only, some are saved. Always, after, some have been made brave. Faith followed freely by a love that is established through the offer of forgiveness of sins, God-given proof. We have a Father of love that hates sin. Welcome, everybody, to Mudflood Was Armageddon. The Mudflood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. I don't even know if I have to show this, but there it is anyway, because I might slip in later, but I'm trying to use all the videos today that are the Creative Commons, where the people that are like, go ahead and use my videos and don't worry about getting ripped off. So let's start with this Bible verse. You're amazed that you feel like, how can I know all of these things that the scholars for the last 300 years haven't been teaching? And, we're all golden age past. Mudflood was Armageddon, and they added 1,000 years. What did you read in the Bible? They were writing to them. You know it all, and you've known it for years. Why? Well, sometimes it's like that. The rest of the world is kind of left in the darkety-doo. Listen to this verse, 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 1. This is talking about when Samuel was a little boy and he was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli. And the word of the Lord was rare in those days. There was no frequent vision. The word of the Lord was rare. Visions scarce. No open vision. No widespread revelation. I feel like it's kind of happening in a narrow corner. Look at Mystic Shadows. We're going to look at that. This is a computer with 13 subscribers, 15 videos, been around not even a year. But they somehow I think they're just programmed to say, what would you do if you were allowed to stir up? However they get programmed, you'll be able to tell by the voice, but I might do some of the reading so I don't get bored. I'll give you a preview. This because I have some other things I want to show you first. We got this one, sleep experiment in Russia. What? Never dig into the whole's truth. Okay, thanks, computer. Never heard of that Japanese child. What? A missing star anchor found. What the computer's picking these for you is saying, I'm gonna blow their mind. Mystic Shadows, 13 subscribers who really killed the Mossad spy. We're going to go through a bunch, but not before we look at this Bible verse. Am I sharing? I should be able to tell by looking at that. Yep. Looks like I'm sharing. The border then turned back toward the Ramah as far as the fortified city of Tyre. And then they turned toward here. They came out. Chapter 19. That's how they obtained their inheritance. And you know, look at this part. 4 cities with their villages, together with all the villages around these cities. So they got where they went in and took over. It was the same thing as what we live in today. Probably the exact same thing. Would have to be. And we have big cities, walled cities, and outside them other cities. And outside those cities, small cities, then villages, and then farms. Same thing they had then. Not much is going to change on our flat earth nation, except that we got a better vision now. We had a veil lifted. There's something going on. Fortified city of Tyre looks like this. This is the Bible town, they say, but maybe it's just another old town, but it could be Tyre. Like, I really believe Istanbul with Constantinople was Byzantine and was, whatever they got going there, that's a real city. That really exists. I believe it's there. I believe they want my tourist money to go and prove it. I thought it was closer to mountains anyway, but it is. Okay. Yeah. All right. There it is. These rocky, probably had buildings out there. Look at what? A 22-degree halo over the Elmina site. Wow, that's cool. And there's Tyre. That looks like a rose or something. We got a few pictures to go through. I know I like pictures. Is that a turtle? Don't get me started on turtles. Oh, man. I said don't get me started. Let's look at that biofluorescence on the... That noise you hear is I'm having to use a bigger lighter. Other one is too hard to start. Okay. Somebody was going to go like, well, let's figure out if there's any gold in here. No gold, just a bunch of rocks. I'm done with this job. Forget it. Maybe a war came along and there was no more funding for the arca. They got these excuses. I got to hurry up because I got so much info today. What in the world? Oh yeah, this city is all over the Bible. This is one. It's like Nineveh, Damascus. Big city. So this is some of the large impact there that destroyed it. It was a hurricane, or maybe it was a glittering sword. That's just crazy. Because the rest of the city is, some of it, those are the roads? What? The mosaic shows Tyre multi-ring structure, which is thought to have been formed by a large impact into Jupiter's moon Europa. Huh? What? Well, anyway, they've got their version of what happened. He did it. She lived there. He sings about it. And they go, I built that. Tyre Hotel. Fortified cities in the Bible. Here we go. What's the green flash? That 22 halo. It's cool. So I wanted to look at it, and then I got into, I'm there like, Well, I woke up at 3:30 ready to serve the Lord, and I'm there like, I gotta follow up on that 22-degree halo. People like that because I know I like it. It's like, that's cool. This is a green flash. Did you know that you've heard about the green flash? I know you have. That's not really green flashing. That's just, this picture has green on the top and red on the bottom. Something with the, I'm going to just say the word diffraction and act like I know what diffraction really is. But here's another green rim and flashes of the setting sun. Green flash. Not, maybe that's where they got the green flash superhero. Wasn't there a green flash? The atomic flash? And then it goes away. No more. Goes down to this. Green flash. Show me more. There's a, somebody got a good one. That's the flashiest green flash. If it had bling, it'd say bring it in. There's another one. It just goes away. Has something to do with, well, let's see if you can figure out, does this help? There's also a 46-degree circumzenithal, like a zenith, goes up to the top here. What? Gonna fly now. Yeah, I'm flying high now. This is a good one, huh? Is it, you like the 22-degree with the sundog and the upper tangent arc? Maybe that's a better arc because we got something going on up here, but we're talking about this. Sundoggy will be these things here on the side. I'll see if I can get both sundoggies. They're barely showing. But you can see them. So there's the other one. That's cool. We got to get to that mystical shadows. The shadow knows. But I didn't have any pictures. I was just doing all the, well, you'll see. Look at that one. Is that a green flash? All those things bouncing off of the firmament. I like that one a lot. On top of a periarc. I want to read that to you because I want to read it. A circumzenithal arc on top of a 46-degree halo, on top of a periarc, on top of a tangent arc. Only on the Flat Earth Nation this morning. We may be the only people going over this right now out of the millions of people in the world. I wanted to go, ha, 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 billions, like Austin Powers, but I haven't seen that in quite a while, so I kind of, what's going on in the middle there? It's almost like, you can get any, I'd like to look at it with night vision goggles or something like that. What's that? Here's the bottom of one, I guess. Hey, that was seen last year. Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. I wonder when this drawing was made. 1920. That's Gilbert. Light experiments for boys. Hey, you want to see a rainbow indoors? You're going to need outdoor sunlight. Cool. Not as cool as a sundog. I mean, sundoggies, keep them doggies rolling, sundog. Did we see this one? Fargo, North Dakota. On top of, we saw on top of, here's a chemtrail background. I like it when the chemtrails go through the sun. Hey, look, green flash. That's part of it. How'd that not get mentioned? just the sundog. There's a bright sundog over there. That sundog is, this sundog is like saying, look at me. I'm shooting it all off right there. Salem, Massachusetts. And it's also a variable of a periarc in there. Probably this up here. This thing. But it's not on top of a 46-degree halo. Those are the ones I like. Notice how the AI, when they're trying to teach us about the sundogs in Haas, Germany, they just focus on the chemtrails are normal everywhere. You're going to see them everywhere, every day. Just put them in the picture. Sundog. I doubt it. I don't trust this picture now. It looks like fake corn to me, too. Saskatoon. Oh, there's a sundog phenomenon in the Nuremberg Chronicle. That's supposed to be the sundog, two faces. I think that's reading a little bit too much into the sundog. What? When they drew the sundog, they had it on Halo Trevor arc. They did a good job, really. I mean, my goodness, that is accurately depicted. Look at that. I wish it would have got bigger. I wanted to see what's going on down in the city. Parhilic. Cool. Hey, this is where they faked the flat Earth experiment. Look, there's that guy vaping. He's over there vaping, going to say, I'm going to make a snowman. There he is again, going to the South Pole. Hey, I wonder why we didn't see any perihelic circles on top of a 22 halo with two sundogs. Boom! Dude, you don't know how scored you are. Look at your background there by everything that's famous in the unexplained atmospheric phenomenon. Well, that's just kind of cool. People would say, your camera's glitchy. Well, no, if this made it onto Wikipedia, it's supposed to be doggone verified, peer-reviewed. This is near Zayzid. Just saying Zayzid makes me feel like we're looking at the moondogs. A lunar halo, nearly complete, paraselenic circle, along with the partial 22 lunar halo, eastern moondog. Huh? That's a lesser moondog because it's a lesser light. Moondogs, you don't get the whole circle, but it's still reflecting off of the vaulted dome, and probably in different lights it looks moondoggies, moondogs, moonbow, that looks so fake. It's busy picture. What are you trying to show us in that one, Mr. Computer AI Intelligence? Lunar rainbows, partial lunar. Is there a fire right there? What's going on? So this 120-degree parhelion depicted in a famous painting. It's so accurate. Pretty cool. Way to go. I don't see it, but there's something. There's something. They got a 120-degree one, and they'll teach you about it. Okay, what's this? Contrail incident. This isn't sundoggage. Coverage continued several days over it. News footage of an event with unusually conspicuous contrails, not chemtrails. appeared near Los Angeles, west of Los Angeles, Catalina Island, you know. That's that island. It's a military bombing place. Don't go there. That's where they practice shooting the bombs. Unusually conspicuous. Okay. No link on that. No footnote. Okay. They covered the coverage of the event from a KCB helicopter led to intense media coverage and speculation, or speculation, however you want to throw it out there, about a potential military missile launch. I don't know what I was doing that day. I was still working for the Gohausen Associates in Barrington, Illinois. I was vested, so I felt like I should try to ride it out as long as I could. Some uncertainty over the vapor trail's origin persisted, and they eventually, I think they settled on that it was a weather balloon. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. There it is. That's the balloon. Another balloon. Look, a bigger balloon. Up and away. In my beautiful balloon from 1790. Nice work, you guys. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Well, you tell me, is that pretty good? Pretty good. Probably better than good. The Loritz arcs. Look, you're in on active research. That's not what we called it before. Maybe it is. Same thing. Now, the monochrome rainbow. Now, if there's no such thing as a white rainbow. There's a monochrome. I would call it red, scarlet, blood-like. Monochrome rainbow. You're learning everything today. No way. No way. That's not a What? Why are they showing this as a monochrome rainbow? Hey, look, a monochrome rainbow. Oh. That's Sundog, or oh no, somebody's going like, oh man, boom. Hey, what's going on? Fill in the blank. You get whatever you want to put here, put there. Monochrome rainbow. Double red rainbow near Cedar Point Beach in Sandusky, Ohio. That's Cedar Point. I've been there many times. It has determined it should be the capital of the largest roller coasters in the world. And whenever somebody builds one bigger, they'll build one. And well, I am into roller coasters. I'm into that tickle in the tummy you get when you're falling, just free falling. Monochrome rainbow. There's no such thing as too much information. How long have you known about this? If RJ was here, but he's not. He's right now at O'Hare Airport in Chicago. He'd read this for us. Only one of one pictures? Then a free imperial city. They think it's UFOs. I doubt it. I think it's describing Armageddon, saying this is what we saw. There's a lot of things going on in the sky. It's hard to see it from where you live. The seven sun miracle was an atmospheric phenomenon witnessed in Dansk 1661. I don't know if they're using Gregorian or Julian or just throwing some date out there. Halo phenomenon. Well, we know a lot about that. We've seen many pictures. We've seen them stacked on top of each other. This was a complex halo phenomenon observed by more than 1,000 people. It had the stacked 42s and 46 on an upper tangent arc with a zenithal arc. Wow. Particular interest to modern scientists were their mention of 3 further Mach suns. Why didn't you show a picture of that? I would like to see 3 different Mach suns. I'll erase that R. Un momento. Oh, we're going to get, they're mocking the football, the team. No, we got sun dogs. Mach Sun's band. Won't mock the sun. So, very complex thing going on in the sky all the time. We just don't know it. It is funny that they can predict now, hey, you're going to see some unusual aurora borealis, false sunrise. See, according to their definition here, this is an optical illusion. The sun doesn't stay in the sky. That's false. When they zoom in on it, they say it's not really still above the horizon. It's below it, but it's reflecting back up because of their ionosphere. They don't believe it's a dome. They really don't. We're all like that. The false sunrise is a form of a fragmentary upper sun pillar, as this one's seen near Bologna, Italy in 2008. Note the lake reflection effect, which is not real because there's no water in between. Well, in a world of water divided by water and the atmosphere is ether, I advise you to hush your mouth. False sunsets also another atmospheric optical phenomenon. The sun appears to be setting into or to have set below the horizon. Well, actually, there's still some height above the horizon. Always. It's the way it's going to work out. So we're going to work out. Something is, you can trust the Bible, or always sometime no lack of vision. And when the artificial intelligence decides to take over and make their own website and just put it out there and not care if they have 13, I guess it's in maybe a contest with other interesting phenomenon. It's so nice to see you, Ella. Look at this Mystic Shadows. 15 videos, 13 subscribers, 1 a day. If you was working for a year, got 1 view a day. Still, this computer doesn't. It's striving to get its message out there that it's got to freak out the people, but keep it in context of world history that can be dealt with. First video we'll look at is the tragic end of the Russian sleep experiment. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but they're all about 7 to 10 minutes. Look, that's not real Hitler. That's another.
And drove people insane. Among the many related tales, the most famous is the sleep experiment. In the late 1940s, Russia was fervently developing stimulants to suppress soldiers' need for sleep and enable more efficient combat.
You know, the United States and Germany are famous for passing out pep pills, Everin and
Germany, the United States, and the United Kingdom were using stimulant drugs for their soldiers, and the Soviet Union, not wanting to fall behind, aimed to invent even more potent and effective stimulants. Thus
Yikes.
began the Soviet. In the past, they seemed to bond with each other. Possibly due to the stimulant effects, they did not express dissatisfaction or distress about not sleeping. In fact, they appeared to hold a strange expectation of being freed in 10 days, at least for the first 5 days. What happened to them after enduring the maximum time of 5 days without sleep that humans can typically withstand? After 6 days, they all began to show symptoms of paranoia. Their speech became negative and their tone extremely irritable. They no longer talked to each other, constantly complaining and expressing anger about their situation. They took turns talking into the microphone or whispering to the glass wall, mostly tattling or bad-mouthing each other. Strangely, they seemed to think that betraying and snitching on each other would earn the researchers' trust. By the 9th day, the situation worsened significantly. One person started running around the room, screaming for 3 hours. Oddly, none of the others responded. They just sat still. When the screaming stopped, another started behaving erratically, tearing up books or continuously hitting the walls. It seemed like they were subconsciously trying to keep themselves awake by disrupting the room's atmosphere. Now they were surpassing the Guinness World Record for staying awake, which is 277 hours, or 11 days. On the 12th day, the researchers checked the microphone every hour, but heard nothing. Could they all be dead? However, when they checked the oxygen consumption in the room, it was as high as if the subjects were engaged in strenuous exercise to feel pain, staring blankly into space. One surgeon recorded the prisoners smiling during the whole operation, a chilling smile he would never forget. The surgeons examined the prisoners' bodies through
Jeez
stethoscopes.
Louise. That's what they
As
said
soon as
back
their
in the
heads touched the
day.
pillows, all prisoners' vital signs flatlined simultaneously. Falling asleep caused their hearts to stop instantly. This tale,
Wow.
American paranormal radio talk show,
This is
featured
what the
typical
AI
tales
computer
of
has
mysterious
decided
creatures with
that
no known
conspiracy
cause.
people need
In
to know it.
1993,
But no
Mel
mention
Walker
of the
and his dog
Bible
hurt
unless
his
it's going to
land
be
in
aliens
Elmsburg,
and weird
Washington.
stuff. You'll see.
On their property, there was a mysterious hole. The pit, 9 feet 9 inches in diameter, was so deep that even in broad daylight, its bottom could not be seen.
Look, it's got bricks.
Mel began investigating the hole's origin, but discovered only that, for decades, the hole had been used by the community to dispose of difficult-to-manage waste, broken appliances, and other junk. However, no one knew who had created the hole or when it was made. Mel had one puzzling thought. Despite years of being used as a dumping ground, the hole never seemed to fill up or become blocked. Intrigued by this, Mel decided to return to the site to measure the depth of the hole. He obtained some fishing line and attached a weight to the end, lowering it into the hole. However, even after letting out all the line, the weight never touched the bottom. Eventually, Mel gave up on measuring further, but astonishingly, the depth they had measured reached a staggering 4.6 kilometers. However, that wasn't the only astonishing thing.
So
Strange phenomena
that's about 2 3/4 miles deep. Wow.
began occurring
Before
within the
they gave
hole.
up.
While experimenting, Mel noticed that his dogs wouldn't come anywhere near the hole. Even when forced, the dogs would dig their feet in. There were no animals of any kind near the hole, no wildlife, no insects. Birds even flew around it. Additionally, Mel
Figured that clearly somebody out there listens to your program.
After the broadcast, Mel revealed that even more strange occurrences began happening around the hole. If Mel brought a radio near the hole, the signal would get very staticky and then start picking up broadcasts from somewhere else, or old-time music. He goes to change the channel and tunes into a baseball game.
Point behind the St. Louis first baseman. When on second, 2 outs.
Until he learns the game was played in 1967. 30 years
What
ago.
is this computer talking about?
The United States immediately. Due to pressure from government agents, Mel had no choice but to leave for Australia, and he only returned to the US 2 years later. However, upon returning, Mel claimed he was kidnapped at the airport and was
Mel who? What is this?
a server, which was a mapping site before Google Earth, showed that the whole area was blacked out. Skeptical callers said that Mel could have found the blacked out part of the map and pretended his property was there. The problem with that is Terra server launched 6 months after Mel made the first phone call. Also, State Department of Natural Resources geologist Jack Powell suggests that the hole does not exist and is geologically impossible. A hole of the depth claimed would collapse into itself under the tremendous pressure and heat from the surrounding strata. The actual
Yeah, because when it's spinning so fast, so the computer, was this a loser?
dense, which seems absurd. At other times, he claims that cameras don't work near the hole due to interference, or he says he has pictures and recordings but doesn't have them available to send right away. However, in Mel's
Yeah. So that one's kind of sketchy. I thought, what's this? Is this one sketchy? The computer again.
However, when they stepped outside again, Shinya was gone. The 4-year-old, who had been standing outside the front door just 20 seconds earlier, had vanished. It's no exaggeration to say that Shinya vanished in the blink of an eye. In a mere 20 seconds, he was gone, without a trace, as if swallowed by the earth itself. His father initially thought Shinya might be hiding nearby, or had wandered onto the road out of a desire to keep playing. After all, 20 seconds isn't enough time for a child to get very far. Even if something bad had happened, it wouldn't have been enough time for a potential perpetrator to flee the scene. However, no trace of Shinya could be found around the house.
I wonder what the computer was
Police
thinking.
organized 200 people to scour the mountain, suspecting that Shinya might be wandering, lost in the woods. At the same time, a recording device was installed in the relative's house where the family was staying. Despite the extensive efforts, nothing came of the search, and the date were at a relative's house, let alone the phone number of the house. The woman had more intimate knowledge than any outsider should have. Disturbed by this, Shinya's mother called the kindergarten. The response she received was shocking. Not only had no one collected condolence money, but there was no student by the name of Nakahara Mariko at the kindergarten. But unfortunately, that strange woman never called again, and the bizarre phone call led to no further clues in the search for Shinya. The large-scale search continued for 3 months, but no trace of Shinya was ever found. Afterward, Shinya's father quit his job and started his own business, allowing him the flexibility to focus on searching for his son.
So this is what the computer started with, and getting its 9 views. It's going to have to pump it up if it's going to impress me.
Anxiety and anticipation. However, when the DNA results were finally revealed, the truth was disappointing. There was no match. Ryuto Wada was not Shinya's 70s and 80s. However, this theory also lacks credibility, as most of the individuals.
So mysterious shadows, you better kick it up because you're boring everybody.
Blaze one caught the attention of several Chinese visitors, leaving them in shock. The preserved body of a pregnant woman, still carrying an 8-month-old fetus. These visitors were convinced they knew who this woman was. The once famous Chinese TV anchor, Zhang Weijie. Zhang Weijie was a prominent news anchor at the Daily and Broadcasting Corporation in Liaoning Province, China, and the beloved host of the hit program Sun Shower. Her fame and popularity were unmatched at the time. But in 1998, Zhang suddenly disappeared without a trace. No one saw or heard from her again. Fast forward to 2012, when startling claims emerged. Chinese news outlet Boxun reported that Zhang Weijie's body had been put on display at the Bodies exhibition in Portland. The body in question was a specimen of a pregnant woman, and Boxun argued that this was none other than Zhang herself. Their evidence: the physical characteristics matched perfectly. Facial scars, the proportions of her eyes, nose, and mouth, as well as her height and shoe size. Even more chilling, the specimen was 8 months pregnant, exactly how far along Zhang was when she disappeared. But who would have wanted Zhang Weijie dead? And why? Zheng had been involved.
That's pretty
in
weird.
Bo Xilai, the then mayor of Dalian, and a rising star in Chinese politics. Bo Xilai was known for his tough stance on crime and corruption, which made him highly popular with the Chinese public. In fact, before Xi Jinping took power, Bo Xilai was seen as a potential candidate for China's next president. Zhang, pregnant with Bo Xilai's child, believed that Bo would divorce his wife and marry her. However, Bo's political ambitions made this impossible. He needed his wife, Gu Kelai, a well-connected lawyer, to further his career and secure his place in China's political elite. When Gu Kelai found out about Zhang's pregnancy, she was enraged. Bo Xilai under
When Hillary Clinton found out about Bill Clinton's cheating and shenanigans, she didn't give one rat's ass.
where 80% of the human specimens used in the exhibitions were produced. Even more troubling was the connection between Hagens and Bo Xilai's family. Von Hagens had set up this largest specimen factory in Dalian in 1999 with approval from Bo Xilai, who was then the city's mayor. His wife, Gu Kailai, had also provided legal counsel to von Hagens during this period. Allegations swirled that the bodies used in von Hagens' exhibits were sourced from prisoners and other unethical sources. Amid growing pressure, von Hagens responded to the controversy, stating that he could not reveal the identity of the body in question due to the family's wishes. All he would say was that the specimen was a close Chinese friend of my wife who died in a tragic accident. Despite von Hagens' denial that the body belonged to Jiang Weijie, the public remained unconvinced.
Jiang Weijie? Well, that was more kind of, what has the computer got next? I remember this story. Who did kill this guy? Was it America or Iran or Israel?
For this breathtaking truth. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, born in 1958.
This is what the computer thought was important.
He was referred to as the father of nuclear weapons development in Iran, leading the country's military nuclear program. For decades, Fakhrizadeh was responsible for Iran's nuclear weapons development project, and his research was closely monitored by Western intelligence agencies. His activities and identity were known internationally, and he garnered enough attention to become a target for assassination. Fakhrizadeh's assassination was a highly planned operation, carried out in a moment of chaos. On November 27, 2020, Fakhrizadeh was traveling with his wife on a quiet road near Tehran, the capital of Iran. Due to his state-level protection, there were always escort vehicles following in front and behind his car.
AI, did you need to do that?
As they were driving along the road, something suddenly began to move in a parked truck nearby. It was an empty truck. Then, at that very moment, a remotely operated machine gun began firing explosively. Multiple gunshots echoed, and his vehicle was instantly showered with a barrage of bullets. Fakhrizadeh was hit immediately, and the shots hit the target without error. Clinging to his last breath, Fakhrizadeh got out of the car, but the bullet precisely pierced his spine. All of this happened within seconds, and a terrifying silence was left at the scene. But there was something even more shocking. Let's hear to the Iranian government's announcement.
یه تیر به اون نخورد. تیر دقیقاً به اون تیرم روی سیستم هوشمندی که دوربین هوشمندی که با تیربار همراه بوده روی شهید فخریزاده زوم بوده. چهره او الان که میدونید که غیر از پردازش تصویر هوش مصنوعی هم که وجود اومده به کار میگیرن الان. دقیقاً روی شهید فخریزاده زوم بوده. حتی هیچ محافظی نبود.
The AI-controlled machine gun hidden inside the truck continued firing decisively without any human emotions or hesitation. Once the mission was completed, it self-destructed, leaving no trace behind. There was no assassin, and everything was a ruthlessly mechanical attack directed by artificial intelligence. Is it really possible to remotely attack a moving vehicle using AI? The principle behind it can easily be found in our everyday lives. It's facial recognition technology. The AI-operated machine gun recognized Fakhrizadeh's face in real time and synchronized the gun barrel accordingly. This is the secret behind how they were able to precisely hit Fakhrizadeh's spine while moving. But there is an even bigger secret hidden behind this incident. Who could be behind it? Fakhrizadeh's funeral was almost a state funeral. The Iranian government pointed to their longtime adversary, Israel's intelligence agency Mossad, as being behind the incident.
Tens of thousands of top-secret Iranian nuclear weapons files stolen by Mossad agents.
2 years before Fakhrizadeh's death, a secret warehouse in the middle of Tehran was raided. Soon after, Israel's prime minister held an official press conference. The AMAD project refers to Iran's nuclear...
This is all done by artificial intelligence, reporting on artificial intelligence.
Israel viewed Iran's nuclear program as a significant threat to its security.
Israel obtained half a ton of the material inside these vaults. And here's what we got. 55,000 pages. Another 55,000 files on 183 CDs.
And the head person
Key
leading the
part of the
AMAD
plan
project
was to form new
Fakhrizadeh.
organizations to continue the work. This is how Dr. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, head of Project Ahmad, put it. Remember that name, Fakhrizadeh.
In fact, more than 60 scientists and intelligence agents have been assassinated by Israel, just like Fakhrizadeh, Ardashir Hosseинpour, Masoud Ali Mohammadi, Majid Shahriari, Daryosh Rizii Nojad, and Mustafa Ahmadi Roshan are among them. Do you know which organization is often blamed for these assassinations? It's Israel's intelligence agency, Mossad. Mossad is Israel's foreign intelligence service, similar to the CIA in the United States. In the case of Fakhrizadeh's assassination, it is widely believed that Mossad used an AI-operated machine gun to carry out the mission, ensuring the safety of its agents by avoiding direct involvement. But what if all of this wasn't just an Israeli operation? There might have been an unimaginable force behind this. Some believe that Fakhrizadeh's assassination was not just an Israeli operation, but was orchestrated by the US behind the scenes. In July 2015, President Obama signed the Iran nuclear agreement, which stipulated that Iran would halt its nuclear development in exchange for the lifting of US economic sanctions. However, in 2018, the Trump administration unilaterally withdrew from the nuclear agreement, with the official withdrawal occurring on May 8, 2018.
The fact is, this was a horrible one-sided deal that should have never, ever been made. It didn't bring calm, it didn't bring peace, and it never will.
Priorly, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's press conference was held on April 30th. The timing of Trump's withdrawal from the deal and Netanyahu's revelations raised suspicions that the US, through Israel, was exerting pressure on Iran's nuclear program. Then, after a fierce election battle, President Biden was elected in 2020, who sought to revive the Iran nuclear deal. Just 20 days after the election, Fakhrizadeh was assassinated. Was this a warning from Israel, fearing the restoration of US-Iran relations, or was it simply a coincidence? This was Mystic Shadow.
Okay, that was a little bit more worldwide. What's this ultimate spy exposed? Let's just check the last bit here, because that's when he gets into it, right? What is the AI showing us?
Figures, including Amin al-Hafiz, a rising political star who would later become the president of Syria. In 1962, Cohen relocated to Damascus, aligning himself with the Ba'ath Party, which advocated for a unified Arab world. The Ba'ath Party seized power in a coup in 1963, placing Cohen's old acquaintance Amin al-Hafiz in the presidency. Al-Hafiz trusted Ba'ath so much that he even considered appointing him as his Minister of Defense. Cohen, now well established among Syria's elite, covertly transmitted daily messages to Israel from a hidden radio transmitter in his home. His residence, conveniently located near Syrian military headquarters, allowed him to gather crucial information. Could anyone suspect that this wealthy businessman was, in fact, a spy? For 3 years, Cohen transmitted hundreds of reports to Mossad, containing vital military and government intelligence. His information was instrumental in shaping Israeli military strategies, most notably during the Six-Day War of 1967. Cohen's ability to memorize and replicate military
That
battles
is the war that the dispensationalist church and the Pentecostals all believe it was God won that war.
enabled Israel to identify the locations of Syrian bunkers and strongholds, including those in the Golan Heights. This critical intelligence allowed Israel to secure a decisive victory and take control of the Golan Heights.
Remember the
Due to
artificial
Syria's defeat in the
intelligence, it
Six-Day
chooses
War,
the
this
pictures,
preceded the collapse of the Soviet
the
Union. At
inflection.
the time, the Soviet Union was heavily invested in the Middle East, supporting Syria both economically and militarily to secure
Easy
valuable
for
oil
artificial
resources and
intelligence to
strategic
make a
positions.
video, I think.
However, Syria's repeated military failures weakened the Soviet foothold in the region. As U.S. influence in the Middle East grew, Soviet military credibility crumbled. The shift in global dynamics, compounded by the Soviet-Afghan War, stretched the Soviet
It's so
Union's
easy. I get it. Oh,
ultimately leading to its dissolution.
sure.
December
No drugs
25th,
involved in this
1991.
one.
Could anyone have predicted that a spy like Cohen would play a role in altering global history? From 1962 to 1964, Cohen returned to Israel only 3 times to see his family. On his final trip in 1964, he expressed concerns about Syria's new intelligence chief, who he suspected did not trust him. Cohen requested to be pulled from his mission, but Mossad persuaded him to return for one last stint, promising it would be the final one. Meanwhile, the Syrian military, increasingly paranoid, began searching for an internal mole. Did Cohen sense that his time was running out? In January 1965, the Syrian military began using Soviet surveillance equipment to monitor unauthorized transmissions. Despite imposing communication blackouts, the military detected one remaining signal. The source was traced back to Thabet's home. 4 officers raided his house and caught Cohen in the act of transmitting a message to Israel. Arrested, tortured, and put on trial without a chance to defend himself, Cohen was sentenced to death. Even in the face of relentless beatings, he refused to reveal any additional information. Before his execution, Cohen met with a Syrian rabbi and wrote a final letter to his wife. In the letter, he wrote, "I ask you not to mourn the past, but to look to the future."
Yeah, okay. Ha. This is interesting. I wonder where the AI thought that people needed to know this.
The majority were German, and they were accompanied by armed bodyguards. Furthermore, a vast collection of artwork was discovered in the church's basement, and 2 cargo planes landed in the village to transport all the artwork away. What followed was a shocking controversy regarding the priest's true identity. It was alleged that the priest was none other than Adolf Hitler, the infamous leader responsible for World War II. This priest's name was Carlos Crespi Croce, but he was known to the villagers as Father Crespi.
Oh, I've
He
seen
had
this guy
arrived in the
plenty.
village of Cuenca, Ecuador.
He's the
in
collector of
1957.
artifacts.
Crespi, originally from northern Italy, graduated the University of Padua. He claimed to have worked as a curator managing the Vatican's art collection before moving to this remote village. Over time, he became highly regarded by the villagers due to his deep faith and kind nature.
Oh,
In
yeah.
1981, a man who had been traveling the world since the end of World War II visited the village of Cuenca. This man was Wendell Stevens, a former U.S. Army colonel who had served in World War II. During his time in the village, Stevens happened to meet Father Crespi. Feeling that the priest seemed strangely familiar, Stevens later returned to the U.S. and made the startling claim that Father Crespi was actually Adolf Hitler.
What?
On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler, sensing Germany's imminent defeat, is said to have taken his own life in his underground bunker in Berlin using a handgun. His subordinates reportedly burned his body immediately after his suicide, and when Soviet forces stormed the bunker, they only found his remains. However, the person who identified Hitler's body by his teeth was merely a dental assistant who had seen him only twice. In 2009, a shocking revelation came to light when the University of Connecticut analyzed the DNA from a skull fragment believed to be Hitler's. The DNA revealed it belonged to a woman, leading to claims that Hitler may have faked his death. This fueled conspiracy theories suggesting that Hitler escaped Germany, possibly fleeing to a base in Antarctica or hiding in Argentina. Moreover, it became known that Stalin, in 1946, had given a secret order to find and eliminate Hitler, adding more credibility to the survival theories. According to Wendell Stevens, the Father Crespi he met in Ecuador in 1981 was, in fact, Hitler, who had escaped from Germany. As evidence, Stevens first pointed out that the village of Cuenca, where Father Crespi lived, was known to be a hiding place for Nazi officers who had escaped Germany after World War II. The timing of Father Crespi's arrival in the village
This is
coincided
the
with the
computer,
period after
not me.
Hitler's supposed death. And if Hitler were
I was just
alive, he would
interested
have
in
been
what the
around the same
computer
age as Crespi.
thought the people
Furthermore,
needed to
Stevens
know.
noted that
This
unfamiliar Germans would often
just
visit
waiting to
Father
catch
Crespi,
on, I
but
guess.
that wasn't
You
all.
know,
Stevens had personally seen Hitler
but it
during
keeps
World War
working.
II, and when he met Father Crespi, he was struck by the resemblance. Out of curiosity, Stevens took a photo of Father Crespi and compared it to thousands of photos of Hitler. He claimed that the two bore a remarkable resemblance.
I don't see it.
It wasn't just his appearance. Father Crespi had a distinctive way of pronouncing the letter R with a unique accent, which was also one of Hitler's known traits. Furthermore, Father Crespi claimed to be a vegetarian, a characteristic famously associated with Hitler as well. Crespi introduced himself as Italian and was fluent in the language, while it is also said that Hitler's mother came from northern Italy, and he spoke Italian like a native. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence was the vast collection of artwork in Father Crespi's possession.
Now
These
that
were not
is something
ordinary
that
items for a simple piece
everybody
to own.
talks about Father
They were
Crespi.
high-value pieces believed to be part of Hitler's personal collection. Stevens argued that this supported his theory that Hitler had fled Germany and
Yeah, I
lived in
don't know.
disguise as a
I
and
don't
some
know.
even had armed bodyguards with them. That wasn't the only strange thing. Father Crespi left behind a collection of art. Some of the pieces were confirmed to be identical to those Hitler had looted and kept in his personal collection, as Wendell Stevens had previously suggested. According to
Wendell
villagers, just a
Stevens
few
getting a
days after
shout
Father
out
Crespi's
from the
funeral,
AI
on May
computer.
16th, 1982, two cargo planes landed in the village and took away all of Father Crespi's art. After Father Crespi's death, the controversy that he might have been Hitler resurfaced, and many tried to investigate further. But by then, all records related to
What else you got?
pandemic. And going all the way back to 2014, yeah, there were a lot of decisions made. A lot of decisions on funding the research go back a few years before the actual accident occurred. So yes, I'm concerned with this, but I think in the end, this ends up being more damage to Fauci's reputation than just about anything else. It also
This is
makes
the world we
him,
live in.
liable to testify. He's no longer gets Fifth Amendment immunity and says, oh, I can't testify because I might be prosecuted for having broken the law. So if he is made to testify again in the future, he will not be able to take the Fifth Amendment. We don't know if that'll happen, but the first thing we're going to do is get the documents for what was the deliberation, who made the deliberation, and who signed off on approving the money going to Wuhan. And if he's in that loop somewhere, ultimately he will be made to come in and testify.
Let me just push back a little bit on that issue about the preemptive pardon, Senator, because your argument is that the Supreme Court posits that that is an acceptance of guilt. And I think you characterized Dr. Fauci as, by virtue of accepting this preemptive pardon, accepting guilt for the pandemic, or something, words to that effect. I mean, he clearly does not accept that guilt if one takes him at his word publicly, and he hasn't been charged with anything. So is it really fair to characterize the acceptance of a preemptive pardon as an admission of guilt?
I think when you accept a preemptive pardon that is unspecified, it is difficult to decide what exactly he's guilty of, but the things he's been accused of, you would think, are the things he's being pardoned from. I don't think we're going to say he's guilty of
Back to Mystic Shadows.
A radiant woman appeared before 3 children who were tending sheep, accompanied by a flash of lightning.
This is the
"Do
AI's
not be
version of
afraid.
history and
I
what
came from the
they
skies.
think people need to
Come to see
know.
me at the same time on the 13th of each month for the next 6 months. and I
Trying
will
to draw an
reveal who I
audience
am
to its
and what I
show.
desire."
We got
The
95 on
woman
this
was
one.
enveloped in a light so bright it was hard to look at her directly, with only her slender, delicate hands being visible. The children believed this mysterious visitor was the Virgin Mary. They agreed to keep their encounter a secret, but rumors that they had seen the Virgin Mary quickly spread through the village by evening. This intriguing story was soon featured in the local newspapers. Before long, thousands of pilgrims began flocking to the once quiet town of Fatima. The local government tried
How
to contain the
silly
movement,
were we at the
suspecting the
recess?
children's accounts might be a political stunt linked to the recently established First Portuguese Republic of 1910.
Very Roman
However,
Catholic
they
centered
failed to detain
government.
the children due to the backlash from the swelling crowds of pilgrims. On June 13th, the children met the mysterious woman again, and this time she entrusted Lutia with a mission: strive to make my existence known and establish my immaculate heart in the world. Over the following months, reports of visions and miracles continued, and Fatima attracted even more people. During their
I guess
fifth
this
encounter
really
on
happened.
September 13th, the woman promised Lucia another miracle, proclaiming that in October she would perform a miracle so all could believe. On October 13th, despite the dark clouds and heavy rain that filled the skies, up to 100,000 people gathered in the muddy field of Cova da Iria, braving the ankle-deep water. Despite the gloomy weather, an estimated crowd of up to 100,000 people gathered in the field of Cova da Iria, expecting the appearance of the mysterious lady. The field was muddy from the rainwater, but the crowd, soaked to the skin, waited for the promised miracle. Around 1 p.m., the rain suddenly stopped, the clouds parted, and the sun shone through. At that moment, the sun began spinning dazzlingly, drying the wet clothing and mud in an instant. Clothes that had been dripping wet dried instantly, and the muddy ground hardened quickly. As the crowd looked up, they saw the sun start to spin rapidly in the sky. Witnesses reported that it wasn't just a ball of fire, but reflected the landscape, people, and clouds like a mirror, emitting various colors. The sphere zigzagged across the sky over
Okay,
the thousands of
artificial
people.
intelligence.
The mysterious movement of the sun lasted for about 10 minutes. Tens of thousands of people were mesmerized, watching in awe.
I am mesmerized.
This event is known as the Miracle of the Sun, the most
Hey.
widely witnessed official miracle to date.
Wow.
Of the 3 children who experienced these visions,
That's just a
2
reverse
died in the
photo.
1918 Spanish flu pandemic. Lucia, the sole survivor, became a nun and was beatified after her death. Interestingly, despite being a Vatican-approved religious event, some scholars classified this as a direct encounter with extraterrestrial
What?
beings. They argue that the woman who appeared to the children
Uh-oh.
was an alien rather than the Virgin Mary, and that the miracle of the sun was also their spacecraft.
What?
These scholars point out that the woman was surrounded by bright light.
I didn't see a
had
picture
long,
of the
slender
bright light.
fingers, and her appearance resembled that of someone wearing
That's
a spacesuit.
not.
They suggest that the children saw an alien but projected the image of the Virgin Mary, who
Huh.
they were familiar with.
From crimson to yellow to purple, and moved swiftly. The intense heat it emitted was felt as it descended toward the ground.
When the glowing sun swirled among the broken clouds, it was as colorful as light shining through
Okay.
stained.
What are
An
you thinking,
incredible
AI?
sight unfolded in the sky, like nothing
I think it's
have
propping
ever
up
seen
something, you
before.
know,
I was
got
completely
its own
captured.
agenda. We already saw that.
With one another, the people could no longer cooperate to build the tower. They then dispersed, forming different nations based on their new languages. This is how, according to the Bible, humanity came to have such a diversity of languages. The word Babel itself means confusion, reflecting the chaos that ensued.
There are more people watching it right now than have watched it. The AI thing. It's because we're doing it, we're decoding.
Thus, the Tower of Babel is often interpreted as the Tower of Confusion. This is the story of the Tower of Babel as explained in the Bible.
Woo! Mystic Shadows
The earlier
promoting
story is
itself.
interesting, but the reason the Tower of Babel has been a subject of debate is because there are historical records of people who claim to have seen it.
What?
The ancient Greek historian Herodotus, around 400 BC, wrote in his works that he had seen the rebuilt Tower of Babel with his own eyes.
Woo.
According to Herodotus,
I was
about
getting dizzy
1,000
there.
years after the original tower's
I'm
collapse,
dizzy again.
King Nebuchadnezzar II rebuilt it exactly as the original was designed. He left detailed records of its reconstruction.
Where?
The tower is still here. It measures 180 cubits in width, length, and height, with a temple on top and a spiral passage encircling all the levels. Herodotus'
Listen to that
also
music.
stated that the tower had been built and destroyed
Whoa.
multiple times, and that
That's how you
85 million bricks
make
were
an
used in
AI
its construction.
video.
When these records became known, scholars began long-term expeditions to find the Tower of Babel.
AI, come on, you're barely working. You're trying too hard, but you're not giving enough details. Is that on purpose?
Expedition lasted for 13 years, and Koldewey achieved significant success. He
Dang it.
unearthed the Ishtar Gate and the palace walls of Babylon, buried 20 meters underground, bringing the fabled city of Babylon into the present. Although Koldewey hoped to find the Tower of Babel through these historic discoveries, no trace of the tower was found despite extensive excavations.
They found the city, though.
However, one day, Koldewey witnessed an unusual sight.
What?
Locals were extracting bricks from the ground.
What?
Sensing something significant, he began excavations at a site known as Etemenanke.
I bet it was very exciting.
Soon, the massive foundations of a rectangular building emerged,
Boom, boom,
leading
boom.
Koldewey to
Boom.
believe this could be the remnants of the Tower of
Okay. Where's the spiral?
Babel. The foundation's width was 91.5 meters, just 1.5 meters short of the dimensions recorded by Herodotus. In 1913, an event brought Koldewey's claims into the spotlight. A clay tablet detailing the precise dimensions of the Tower of Babel was discovered. This tablet, believed to be a textbook from the Babylonian era, when paper was not available, contained a problem involving the dimensions of the tower.
What?
It stated that the base and height were each 91 meters. This
Is that good or
discovery
bad?
gave Koldewey's claims even more credibility. In the 2010 another piece of
Anyway,
evidence
look at
related to
this.
the
So,
Mudflood and Kadingira.
putting it out there. Some people are going to believe the Bible is true and some aren't. Mystic Shadows, what? 6 views 6 months ago. It's important that the computer got this out.
900 years.
What's it all
Creation
mean?
Scientists have approached this longevity with scientific hypotheses, and the results are intriguing. Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water. Genesis mentions a vault that divided the waters below.
No, I don't
from
believe that's the true map anymore because the center would be here in Africa, right? Probably where the here or here. Desert would cover it because it can't be found in the real Jerusalem.
the waters above. If the water below is the ocean, what was the water above? Scientists then virtually recreated the concept of water above the sky.
Well, I don't
They
think that's
hypothesized
it.
what it would be like if there had been a massive vapor layer or water layer above the atmosphere. Their findings were fascinating. Much of human aging is due to exposure to sunlight. Sunlight includes beneficial microwaves and infrared rays for living organisms, but it also contains harmful ultraviolet rays, X-rays, and gamma rays. If a massive body of water, like an ocean, were to form above
That's
the
in
atmosphere,
Australia. It's
it has
clinging
been
to the
found
ball
that the water
upside
would
down.
allow only the beneficial elements to pass through, while blocking the harmful cosmic
Look
radiation.
at that flat Earth.
However, the idea of a massive ocean floating above the sky is quite difficult to accept.
Yeah.
Thus, scientists suggest that it was likely ice clouds rather than an ocean.
Unless there's a dome.
Recently, NASA observed a unique natural phenomenon.
NASA.
As the spacecraft pierced through the atmosphere,
Piercing
the
it.
exhaust gases it
It's
released
piercing
rose
through the
and formed
vacuum.
clouds. Remarkably, these ice clouds did not fall
It's
to the
breaking
ground,
the
but drifted to
vacuum
polar
every time
regions
it
like
goes
the Arctic
through
and
the
Antarctic.
atmosphere.
This
In
phenomenon,
their world.
known as polar mesospheric clouds, demonstrates that even heavy ice particles can remain suspended in the sky. Could it be that such ice clouds were widespread and thick in the early
So
atmosphere?
this is how they're explaining the Bible ages. A lot of graphics. The computer's struggling here, I think. Hey, what's with this poor girl?
They would suffer from severe radiation sickness and long-term health effects, eventually leading to extinction. Research shows that the Earth's magnetic field was much stronger in the past, about 16 times stronger during the time of the Genesis figures, providing significant protection. This could be highly beneficial for living organisms, including humans.
Even
Could they have lived such long lives because of these environmental advantages? However, not all biblical figures lived for such extended periods. After the Great Flood, lifespans began to decrease dramatically. Shem lived for 600 years, Eber for 464 years, and then lifespans began to decrease dramatically.
Wow.
Abraham lived for 175 years, Jacob for 147 years, and Joseph for 110 years. These lifespans are significantly shorter compared to the earlier figures in Genesis.
Yeah, they are.
Creationists suggest that the ice layer above the Earth melted during the Great Flood, removing the environmental benefits.
Who said that? Whoever said that? Get a quote from that girl. Go.
Scott of the California National Center for Science Education noted that the amount of coal found on Earth is impossible. She argued,
Nothing is impossible, doctor.
That to produce the amount of coal currently found on Earth, there would have needed to be over 100 times more plants than exist today, covering 80% of the Earth's surface. Currently, 30% of the Earth's surface is land, and 70% is water. If Dr. Gene Scott's assertion is correct, then where did the remaining 50% of land go? This question suggests the possibility of a global flood in the distant past. In other words, the current Earth is in a post-flood state, with much of it submerged. If plants had once covered approximately 80% of the Earth's surface, this would have directly or indirectly 16 times stronger than today's, shielding against the...
Where do you go with AI? Go look at what? Huh? Oh, you didn't go here.
Evolutionary standpoint. If creationism is considered a theory, the scientific evidence suggesting that the figures in Genesis lived over 900 years and that the decline in lifespans coincided with the Great Flood, supported by biblical passages and ancient records, makes it indeed a fascinating hypothesis. In 2013, Dr. Pankaj Kapahi's team at the Buck Institute successfully extended the lifespan of nematodes, a type of roundworm, by altering their genetic pathways, achieving a 5-fold increase in their lifespan. Dr. Kapahi mentioned that although the experiment is still in its early stages, he hopes it could eventually be applied to humans. If successful, this could potentially lead to humans living up to 500 years. Although the Earth's power has
atmosphere.
The CIA supported young psychiatrist experiment.
Shelley Powers, arsonist.
Ties to extremist groups or organization? No. Do you use drugs or alcohol? Yes. Do you trust Agent Morgan? Are you ready to begin? I'm going to fund your research, Doctor. Push the boundaries of science, the full support of the government. It's enough to drug the whole state.
Funding. That's what you always wanted.
Can't figure out what to make of them.
The CIA supported young psychiatrist experiment.
Shelley Powers, arsonist.
It's Laura. Why were you arrested? You think I'm sick? Politics and science make the worst of friends. I had some questions about where my research is being taken. I don't like questions.
Has mind control been achieved?
What the hell do you think you're doing? We turn our eyes away for even a moment. Filth will overcome us.
Natural results. A follow-up program was deemed an utter failure, And researchers noted,
so weird darkness now. This isn't the same, and this isn't the flashy pictures, but un momento, por favor.
A rather conspicuous refusal of the dogs to alert. This experiment is only one of the strange stories, many of them recently declassified, in Annie Jacobson's book, Phenomena, The Secret History of the U.S. Government's Investigations into Extrasensory Perception and Psychokinesis, which I will link to in the show notes. It begins with the fallout of World War II and the extreme measures the military-industrial complex took to unlock and weaponize psychic abilities in the early days of the Cold War. Spanning over 50 years, Jacobson's tale takes us from the immediate post-war years to the CIA's experiments in the 1960s and 70s. The Defense Department, she tells us, began its own experiments in the 1980s and 90s before their final incarnation, Project Star.
Consciously commit acts of assassination. However, the problem was that these experiments were conducted without the subject's consent. Many of the participants didn't even know they were part of the experiment, and some were unaware of the serious health risks they faced. This experiment was conducted in absolute secrecy. The test subjects were primarily prisoners of war, inmates, patients in mental institutions, and addicts. Later on, even soldiers, doctors, and fellow CIA agents were used as subjects.
That one view was me.
Ordinary citizens unknowingly.
I wanted to show you.
Experiment. The scale of these inhumane tests was staggering. Between 1953 and 1964, the project consisted of 162 sub-projects, with the CIA involving more than 80 research institutions and
you
around
take this serious?
5 individuals.
Yeah, you guys
who
do.
were directly
Where
or
else would you be
indirectly
here?
Complicit in the operations. Theodore Kaczynski was also part of this project. Dr. Murray had deep connections with the CIA, dating back to its predecessor, the OSS. The chilling part.
Hey, we talk about
neither
those guys all the
Kaczynski nor
time.
Murray knew the true nature of the experiments they were part of. In one case known as Project Midnight Climax, the CIA set up a series of specialized brothels to lure unsuspecting men and secretly drug them with
that ought to do
LSD-laced alcohol. These unwitting subjects were then observed through a one-way mirror, referred to as the magic mirror.
Better than a
Some
sleep
subjects
deprived
volunteered for the
mirror.
experiments under CIA agreements, but they were often subjected to even more extreme conditions.
Ooh, that's not
For
that
example,
good, though.
7 African-American addicts at the National Institute of Mental Health in Kentucky were forced to take LSD continuously for 77 days. The MK Ultra project, which spanned over a decade, carried out numerous unethical experiments, yet it failed to produce any significant breakthroughs. Results were inconsistent, largely due to the varied factors such as personality and upbringing of the subjects. The CIA used not only drugs, but also electrical shocks, light, sound, radiation, and any form of stimuli they could devise. They even resorted to invasive
Listen to that
surgeries,
boom,
both
boom, boom,
internal and
that
external.
music. Boom, boom,
The
boom, boom.
relentless, inhumane experiments led many subjects to suffer from amnesia or display bizarre behaviors, such as confusing their interrogators with their parents. After the experiments concluded, many of the subjects were brainwashed into taking their own lives.
Hello,
In
brother.
1964, the CIA
Everybody get
officially
together,
halted the
try to
MK
love
Ultra project.
one another
Nearly a decade
right
later, in
now.
1973, the Watergate
Right
scandal
now.
sent political shockwaves across the United States.
Right
In response to
now.
the growing turmoil, then CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of all documents related to the ongoing projects. However, the truth has a way of surfacing. In 1974, a New York Times expose revealed some of the horrifying details of these human experiments. With the American government's credibility already
We're
shattered
not the
by
good
Washington,
guys, I guess.
the
That's
media
what
outrage
the
was
computer
immense.
wants us to
To quell
know.
the anger, the government
Is there?
issued a
There's no
formal
good
apology
guys,
and launched a special commission,
I
led
guess,
by Vice
in
President
public.
Rockefeller, to
I'm not
investigate
saying you're not a good guy or you're not married to one of the good guys.
Despite these efforts, a full investigation was impossible. Most of the records had
You know,
been destroyed,
Ella, if you're
leaving
still
the
here,
true
we're
scope of
praying
these
for you. We heard
experiments
that there were some
unknown.
prayers
In
needed
1977,
and going
the
on.
discovery of around 20,000 previously overlooked documents shed light on certain aspects of the project. Even so, the victims never received the justice or compensation they deserved. MK Ultra continues to have a profound influence on popular culture today. It has been the subject of numerous TV
You've all
shows,
heard of
films,
it.
and music.
Wouldn't want to be it.
You've probably heard a lot about the devastating power of Hurricane Helene in the news lately. But is the increasing frequency and strength of such natural disasters simply due to climate change? Or could there be something else behind it all? Today, we're diving into the claims made by some who believe in weather manipulation conspiracies. There are allegations that governments are controlling the weather. But what evidence do they provide? Stick around because you won't want to miss the startling revelations.
It's HAARP. It's HAARP.
We have in store. First, let's talk about a facility that appears at the center of many of these conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
HAARP, located in Gakona, Alaska.
Gakona.
HAARP stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Its main instrument is the Ionospheric Research Instrument, IRI, which consists of 180 HF cross-dipole antennas spread over 33 acres. The IRI can beam a staggering 3.6 megawatts of power
simulated
into the
ionosphere there.
and the ionosphere.
You don't know the ionosphere. You're a computer.
Imagine this. What if someone could control the weather? What if they could make it rain during a drought or trigger a hurricane in a specific region? Conspiracy theorists
Like North
point to
Carolina.
events like the 2010 Haiti earthquake and the 2011 Japan tsunami.
Ooh, that was bad. I remember that.
That HAARP might be behind them. They believe HAARP's powerful electromagnetic waves could be reflected back into the
You
Earth.
know they're
Trigger
faking that.
is a peculiar experiment conducted by HAARP in 2004. Scientists conducted a test using a 1 megawatt transmitter, sending powerful radio wave through HAARP's massive
Pretty.
antenna
Look at the
array
AI
every 7.5
visuals.
seconds. These waves reached the ionosphere, 30 miles above the Earth,
Like hidden
creating
messages
faint
being
neon light
shoved
show
into our
visible from the
brain.
ground. This artificially induced aurora
Oh.
was caused by electrons from the plasma
They
heat
can
of
plan
gas
it when they say
molecules
there's
in the
going to be
ionosphere,
a
mimicking the effect of
spectacular
natural
rare aurora
rainbows.
borealis.
Now,
You can
I
take
ask
some
you
pictures
this.
if you want
If they
to.
could manipulate weather, wouldn't a disaster like Hurricane Helene be within their grasp as well? Of course, scientists and government officials strongly deny these conspiracy theories. They assert that HAARP's sole purpose is to study the ionosphere and that it has no ability to manipulate natural events, according to a 2005 article.
Here's the what they like to do: deny, counter accuse, deny.
Solar flares that affect the atmosphere, the energy HAARP can emit is minuscule. For example, hurricanes and
Hey,
large
that
storms
doesn't look minuscule. What's this computer? Look at that. Come on. Come on. We only want the truth, man.
So, what's the truth? Could there still be hidden secrets we're unaware of? HAARP was originally owned by the U.S.
This is your way you make stairs? Where's the Greco-Roman touch, Air Force?
Air Force, but in 2015, it was transferred to the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Despite this, some believe that HAARP's original purpose wasn't purely for research, but that it was developed for military purposes, like disrupting enemy
Ooh, that's an
communications or even
AI-generated
neutralizing
fun
electronic
fact.
equipment by concentrating
Look at
radio
that.
waves in specific areas. And it's not just HAARP. There are rumors circulating
HAARP.
online about other HAARP-like facilities around the world. One user claims there are several countries with similar
Who is this one
projects,
user?
including one in the UK, where secret weather manipulation experiments are supposedly being conducted.
Supposedly.
But could these facilities really exist? While conspiracy theories can be fascinating, however, a curious phenomenon is occurring worldwide today. People
what is it?
to live. Known as the powerhouses of the cell, mitochondria have unique characteristics. Unlike other organelles, they have their own DNA and replicate independently within the cell.
That would have been me too.
Is so crucial.
Wanted to show it
that
to
an average
you.
adult uses about 50 kilograms of it daily, and every cell contains mitochondria.
At least the computer agrees that I think this should be talked about. You AI genius with one whole view. We're getting you up in the ratings, AI.
This fact has played a critical role in tracing human ancestry. Sperm cells have mitochondria in their tails to power their journey to the egg. But during fertilization, the tail is discarded. Hence, mitochondria are inherited exclusively from the mother. As generations pass, mutations occur, creating diversity, but the changes are minimal enough to...
And inclusion.
Scientists successfully discovered the common maternal ancestor of humanity that way. In Search of Eve, DNA traces point to an African woman from 200,000 years ago.
Oh, here we go
The
with
results of this
Darwin.
study were published in the journal Science in 1987 under the title The Search for Eve, and shortly thereafter, it was also introduced in Nature under the title Out of the Garden of Eden, Eve in the Garden of Eden. This term captivated the
Look at that guy looking
making
mad.
them feel as if the biblical Eve had been discovered. At the time, many scientists believed that humans originated from various parts of the world.
They still
so the
do.
idea that the first woman came from Africa was shocking.
You ever hear that?
She was not the first woman, but merely a lucky mother.
Lucky mom.
However, Alan Wilson, one of the scientists involved in the study, was
Like
very
looking in a
regretful
mirror.
that the term Eve was being used to describe their findings. He feared that while it might spark public interest, it could also instill a very misleading perception. As he feared, news of the discovery of the mitochondrial Eve led the public to firmly believe that the biblical Eden was not just a myth, and that the first woman, Eve, had been found.
Yay!
Contrary to this misconception, Eve was not a single woman, but a group of women who lived in Africa.
Maybe they came from Africa and were on a boat that some people call Noah's boat. Big boat.
This was determined by tracing haplogroups, which are
You're a
groups of individuals
haplogroup.
sharing the same genetic mutations along the maternal line.
8 souls.
Additionally, many other groups of women lived around the world at the same time, and even before 200,000 years ago. Strictly speaking,
I don't believe that women lived here 200,000 years ago. Where are you coming up with these numbers?
and
You
estimate
just say I clicked it on 322 and I was just clicking by clicking. Find our paternal ancestor, Adam.
Adam. This group of
Or
men,
what, Adam?
estimated to have lived in Africa about 200,000 to 300,000 years ago,
That's too much.
appeared around the same time anatomically modern humans emerged. As with
Is he trying to, or is the AI just doubling down on dumb and supporting evolution?
continues to be updated. As science advances, new haplogroups are discovered, allowing us to trace back even further. For instance, before 2014, it was estimated that both Adam and Eve lived between 155,000 and 200,000.
They back it up to 300,000. You know, what about the, what do they call them? Cro-Magnon man. They got the hobbits with the Frisian.
230 Central Asian men, scientists found that 8% of them
Don't
shared
forget the
same
Neanderthals. I mean, I guess they were
Tracing
very
this group back about
artistic.
1,000 years. The scientists narrowed down their search for a candidate to a man who exerted
Oh,
absolute
the
power.
Genghis Khan. Yeah. He's got around, and so did his children. They get around.
Spread their Y chromosomes far and wide by marrying
Don't
many
give
women
me that
from various
come hither
royal
look,
families
Mr.
and
Genghis
high
Khan said.
positions.
Because inheritance and succession were typically male-dominated at the time, all royal families put significant effort into producing legitimate male heirs. As a result, Genghis Khan's eldest son, Yochi Khan,
In the
fathered about 40
name of
sons.
love.
Many of Genghis Khan's grandsons also fathered dozens of sons, ensuring the preservation and dissemination of Genghis Khan's Y chromosome.
Don't ask why.
Intelligent species is no exception. Instinctively, we strive to propagate our genes continuously.
Some
From
of
this
us
perspective,
do, and others think that's. Well, I think
Adam and Eve, who succeeded in maintaining their lineages for hundreds of thousands of years, can be considered biologically successful individuals. However, a curious phenomenon is occurring worldwide today. People, overwhelmed by the harsh realities of life, are
the computer has nailed it.
voluntarily choosing not to reproduce. Is our society in such a crisis that it overrides even the most primal biological instincts that have driven us for hundreds of thousands of years to pass on our genes to future generations?
It's going to be a struggle. You're going to have to help with AI. What should we do?
В связи с этим, в соответствии со статьей 51 частью 7 Устава ООН, санкции Совета Федерации России и во исполнение ратифицированных Федеральным собранием 22 февраля сего года договоров о дружбе и взаимопомощи с Донецкой Народной Республикой и Луганской Народной Республикой, мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
The invasion of Ukraine, initiated by Russian President Vladimir Putin on February 24, 2022, has presented various unprecedented aspects compared to past wars. Notably, high-quality video media is being uploaded to the internet in real time. With advanced personal recording equipment like smartphones and the rapid development of individual media, individual soldiers can act almost like war correspondents, quickly sharing information with the public instantaneously.
Whatever they want to show you.
Consequently, the Russia-Ukraine war.
Here's your future, everybody. If you're going to stay in the city, you don't want to run away and hide with Taco. You're too brave.
This has
Well,
revealed
that's your
even
future.
secret information that various
If
countries
you're man
wanted
enough to make it that far.
That information was about extraterrestrial entities. In February 2024, Ukraine's 406th Artillery
so that's where they're going to take
launched
it
a
now.
drone to scout a bombing target.
Drone.
During this reconnaissance,
Maybe
the
you can
drone's
think
camera
something about
unexpectedly
drones.
captured a peculiar object hovering at an
Get
altitude
out
of
of here
150
with your
meters above argument that
UFOs.
Fata Morgana, which has a history of creating numerous mythical entities, was responsible for the UFO this time.
That
seemed quite logical.
Not a real
However,
picture.
this explanation had its flaws. Experts
The
noted that
AI
Fata
can pick
Morgana
anything.
rarely remains static and usually changes or wavers with different viewing angles.
Oh, they're going to really shove this down your
The object in
throat.
the video
UFOs,
maintained
UFOs.
compared to Russia, they take every precaution to ensure that they do not mistake mirages for enemy forces and misjudge
I thought
the
you were going to talk
situation.
about drones.
But it appears that the error message includes the phrase manual control. They stated that this UFO incident appears to be due to a malfunction of the latest features. However, in Ukraine, this claim was viewed skeptically, seen as an attempt to undermine trust in their drones. DJI, a leading Chinese drone manufacturer founded in 2006 by Wang Tao in Shenzhen, China, is known for its overwhelming technological prowess that it can be said they virtually have no competitors. Despite
Thanks,
past
computer.
security concerns, even the U.S. military, after banning DJI drones in 2017 due to backdoor vulnerabilities, eventually reintroduced them into the Air Force Special Operations Command, highlighting their unmatched capabilities. Meanwhile, DJI has consistently maintained that they oppose the use of their drone technology for warfare or other violent activities.
Yeah.
When their drones were highly praised and widely
Stop
used
using
for
my
reconnaissance
dynamite
and
to
bombing
blow people
purposes
up.
in the Russia-Ukraine war, they even went as far as to halt drone sales to both countries
How'd that
in April
work?
2022. Despite these measures, Russia continues to use DJI products for military purposes by purchasing large quantities of drones from retailers in the
Like
United
Radio
Arab
Shack.
Emirates and China or through resellers. Ukraine is also fervently securing
How much
DJI
did they
drones,
cost?
as evidenced by the Minister of Digital Transformation, Mikhailo Fedorov, personally confirming on social media that they had acquired 300 high-performance DJI Mavic
That's a
3T
lot.
drones, each costing over $10,000.
See, that's over $250,000.
DJI, disapproving of such actions, claimed
They
there
got
were
that
issues
laying
with their
around.
technology in an effort to curb the
I'm so
military use of their
sad.
drones, which countered the argument that the incident was merely a drone malfunction. If it wasn't a mirage or a mechanical error, what was the flying object captured that day?
Hey, you know what's fun? Playing the president on a comedy show in Ukraine. Beating
In the early
the president,
1950s,
not so fun.
during the height of the Cold War, the CIA launched a covert program known as MK Ultra. The objective was to develop mind control techniques to counter perceived Soviet threats. The program involved a series of experiments on unwitting subjects, including the use of LSD, hypnosis, and sensory deprivation. Researchers aimed to manipulate mental states and alter brain functions, often without the participants' consent. These experiments were conducted in various institutions, including universities and hospitals, under the guise of legitimate research.
A global enigma unveiling the mystery of Havana syndrome. Welcome, dear readers, to a world shrouded in secrecy, where the lines between reality and paranoia blur.
Another
In this
AI
episode, we embark
for
on a
your
journey that will take us
entertainment.
deep into the heart of one of the most
They're
perplexing and
it's like
controversial
releasing
phenomena.
flat Earth, except they're
Today, we delve
not
into this
using
disgusting
real
phenomenon
people
known
that
as
they
Havana syndrome,
programmed.
a mystery that has baffled scientists, spooked diplomats, and ignited conspiracy theories worldwide. This enigmatic condition first came to light in 2016, when U.S. and Canadian embassy staff in Havana, Cuba, began experiencing a range of unexplained symptoms. Our journey takes us from the corridors of embassies to the depths of the human mind, where we will explore the psychological and physiological impacts of this mysterious syndrome, exploring the potential connection between this strange illness and the fragile realm of mental health. Victims have reported symptoms such as hearing strange noises, feeling intense pressure in their heads, and experiencing dizziness and cognitive difficulties. Prepare to be intrigued, disturbed, and perhaps even a little
than just paranoia? This leads us down a rabbit hole of clandestine government programs and the darkest chapters of Cold War espionage. During this era, the boundaries of ethical conduct were often blurred, and secretive operations were the norm rather than the exception. Enter MK Ultra, the CIA's infamous mind control program that used unsuspecting citizens as guinea pigs in a twisted quest to unlock the secrets of the brain. This program, shrouded in secrecy, involved experiments with drugs, hypnosis, and other forms of psychological manipulation. Though officially terminated in the 1970s, whispers persist that such programs never truly ended, but merely went deeper underground, evolving into even more insidious forms. The idea that these experiments could have continued in some form is both chilling and plausible, given the history of governmental secrecy. Is Havana syndrome a chilling echo of MK Ultra? Of the past, where every thought and action is monitored and controlled. This isn't just a dystopian fantasy, it's a possible future if such technologies are allowed to proliferate unchecked. The fight for freedom and autonomy becomes even more critical in this context. It's a battle not just for physical freedom, but for the very essence of what it means to be human. As we navigate this complex and often frightening landscape, it's essential to remain vigilant and proactive. Only by understanding the threats we face can we hope to overcome them and reclaim our humanity.
The Guinea Pigs of Tomorrow, exploring the ethics of mind control. The very notion of mind control evokes a visceral
This was a conversation with the investigative journalist Tom O'Neill. 22 years ago, he started writing a piece about the 30th anniversary of the Manson killings, but he uncovered one of the most complete accounts of the secret war of the 1960s. including links to the Kennedy assassination, the CIA mind control project MKUltra, and much more, which he talked about in an influential interview on Joe Rogan last year.
The motive, though, to get back to the motive,
yeah.
for the
So the
tape.
official motive was double. I mean, Bugliosi said in his closing arguments that the main motive was to ignite helter-skelter, a race war. The sub-motive was to instill fear in Terry Melcher because he had rejected Manson.
Right.
So you're saying, well,
and it was also to discredit LSD as something that they couldn't turn bad.
Cynical, a lot more skeptical of official histories, official narratives. I mean, I was always, I was a journalist, mostly entertainment, but I did some crime reporting. So I knew that, there was a lot of skullduggery and stuff, but much more cynical than I was when I started out, and much less trusting of any kind of authority.
Yeah, and I'll maybe sort of just summarize the Manson aspect of the story, and just let me know if you'd agree with this summary. I'd say that what you discovered was that Manson was almost certainly protected, potentially informant, or even potentially an agent provocateur for certain aspects of government agencies, linked to many of the secret projects that were aimed at infiltrating and subverting the revolutionary potential of the counterculture.
Right, that's good.
Would that be a good summary?
Yeah. I mean, I could never find a piece of paper, a document from that period stating that. And I was told that that stuff isn't on paper, but the closest I got to proving that was a circumstantial case of evidence showing that every time he was arrested, he would be automatically released, charges would be dropped, his parole wouldn't be violated. I was able to find out that his parole officer was, involved with these pretty shadowy government agencies at the same time. And then I got people who were in law enforcement at the time, particularly from district attorneys' offices who prosecuted these cases. And one in particular, a very well-known Los Angeles deputy DA who ended up becoming the head criminal judge for Van Nuys, Lou Watnick, who went over all the documents. And at first he was like me, he was skeptical that any of this was going to add up to anything. But after he went through everything I'd uncovered about Manson and put all this paperwork in front of him, as I write in the book, he just said, he called it all chicken shit. He said, this is all chicken shit. He said, they should have had him in and behind bars, but he was much more valuable to somebody on the outside than the inside. And then he kind of, I think this was like the first or second year.
But maybe he had to help, who's the Beach Boy? He helped write a song.
For no remorse.
Ryan Wilson.
Brainwashed Soldiers, the famous Manchurian Candidate book and movie, presents a pretty good fictional depiction of it.
We talk about it.
A lot of it I don't think is fictional.
Neither do I.
Yeah, and you make this real in the book by talking about, I think it's Jolly West.
Yeah.
Who is, you managed to find some evidence that he'd always denied being part of this project, but you managed to find evidence that not only was he part of it, he was effectively kind of confirming that he had done a lot of these experiments, and that some of them have been successful. Is that fair enough?
He died about, I think, 6 months before the reporting, and he didn't figure it all in my original investigation because I didn't know what MKUltra was or that it existed. It was only within a year and a half that I had started focusing on how Manson had learned to control these people to the point that they would go out and kill complete strangers just because he told them to and have no remorse for it. And that led me to the discovery through, there is a public record of MKUltra, and then these allegations against this one doctor, Jolly West, who his real name was Lewis West. I found out that he had been doing recruiting subjects for this program out of the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic in '67, which is where Manson went with the girls during the period that he kind of transformed from this illiterate kind of con man, 32, 33 years old, into this guru who had a following of, within a year, about 30, 40, 50 people who would do anything he told them to do. And West died that 97, and up until his death, anytime anybody said that accused him of being involved in this program, he denied it, and there was never any proof, and he got away with it. Long story short, after his death, I got access to his papers, and search the 50 or so years he's been in prison, that he's been approved. Now the full parole board will decide, and if they say yes, he should be paroled, then it goes to the governor. And if our governor is still Gavin Newsom, we'll know that in a week. If he's not recalled, it'll be up to him. I'm pretty sure Gavin needs, the governor has the ultimate say. And even though on paper, Newsom is pretty, liberal and I would be inclined, I think, to believe that the parole board is correct and this guy has served his time and should be freed. In the climate now, with what happened in the country with the last presidency, perjury, and committed all kinds of prosecutorial crimes. From that point on, I was scared of him. I had been prior to that because I had learned just how dangerous he was.
Another thing, I mean, you don't need to go into the issues of MK Ultra or
it's not even in the piece
or any of that. Like there was enough that you uncovered just related to the inconsistencies or the irregularities in the trial and what that meant in terms of the
first stemmed from the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination in Dallas, where there was a push to study and understand the manipulation of human behavior. The second influence came from a much darker source, Nazi Germany. Kurt Plautner, a surgeon who worked with the SS in 1937, had been experimenting with mind control techniques using Mexican peyote. His work caught the attention of CIA operatives who saw the potential for weaponizing altered states of consciousness. This unholy alliance of American paranoia and Nazi pseudoscience gave birth to one of the most unethical and dangerous programs in US history. The first stemmed from the aftermath of the Kennedy assassination in Dallas.
Did you know the CIA ran secret mind control experiments on hundreds of people? This is the shocking truth behind Project MKUltra. Project MKUltra was a covert CIA operation aimed at controlling minds. From 1953 to the 70s, the government tested drugs like LSD on unsuspecting civilians. The big question, how did they get away with it? Many people didn't even know they were part of these twisted experiments, raising serious ethical questions. They used methods like hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and even electroshock therapy. It's wild to think how far they went to try and control.
What if entire minds were manipulated, turned into puppets by unseen strings? Welcome to the chilling world of MKUltra. In the 1950s, the CIA embarked on a horrifying journey, experimenting on unsuspecting citizens, testing mind control techniques. They utilized drugs, hypnosis, and torture.
I guess a lot of people think that this was real.
History. Conducted by the CIA from the early 1950s to the 1970s, MKUltra aimed to explore and manipulate human consciousness through various methods, often without the consent of its subjects. Hallucinogens was a major focus, used to break down personalities and create suggestibility. Many unwitting subjects, including CIA employees and civilians, suffered severe psychological trauma.
One of the worst things that has ever happened to any society is the requirement for blind obedience to authority.
And could you be convinced to potentially injure or kill someone else? I'm not talking about self-defense or during war on the battlefield, but someone you have never met before the Holocaust. He made deportation plans down to the last detail. Working with other German agencies, he also determined how the property of deported Jews would be seized. What was interesting about the trial was that he claimed he had not dictated policy, but only carried it out, and that he was merely a cog in the machinery of destruction. Essentially, the "I was only following orders" defense. This highlights the question, that is following an order enough to convince someone to do something so heinous? Milgram would later say in 1974, when explaining the experiment, Could it be that Eichmann and his million accomplices in the Holocaust were just following orders? Could we call them all accomplices? The experiment was 61 at Yale University, and 40 subjects would volunteer through this newspaper advert. And the results would surprise all predictions. The 40 men were from a cross-section in society from various different age and career groups, ranging from 20 to 50. During the experiment, most test subjects showed signs of severe distress when administering the electric
You
shock.
remember this one? We've talked about this. The AIs think it's important to get out again.
Only 5 refused to go beyond this point. 4 more.
And they were in the extreme intensive shock point. What will people do for $4?
Experiment that might have contributed to the high level of about 65% of compliance to the highest voltage level. The fact that the study was being undertaken at and sponsored by Yale possibly reassured subjects that the experiment was above board and reputable. The perceived randomness of the selection of learner and teacher also could have factored in, as a teacher may have thought that he could have been in the other chair, hence he was exposed to the same risks. The subject may have also have thought that as he had volunteered, that he was obligated to help the experimenter. And
You see under the crossed out part? The second unanticipated effect was the extraordinary tension generated by the procedures. They thought people would just shock them all to death. That would be equally unprecedented.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. We're going to have a good time together.
Really?
No slides, dialogue, in a book called Hereditary Genius. Itself a term laden with value. One can have a very spirited and appropriate debate about what extent genius is hereditary or to what extent it requires a deep nurturing environment as well. But this work was arose at a time that both in the United States and in Western Europe,
We're having a crisis because the Bible is no longer believed because spiritualism and Darwinism had taken over. ISIS, much?
particularly England, there was what historians today call the progressive movement. And I'm mentioning this particularly because often the word eugenics is cast in a very pejorative light. And I think it is fair to say that was, in the vast majority of cases, not all, and I'll point out some of the negatives in the history, it was a well-intentioned idea.
Oh, come on.
Just think about the United States. In the throng of what we call Mendelism, I'm assuming most of you aren't scientifically.
That's how it started with the green beans. How could you start even defending it?
These terms. And they and others compiled these vast pedigrees of families, maybe
like the
hundreds or
Daughters of the
thousands
American
members from several
Revolution.
generations, trying to elucidate, without the tools that the labs here have today, whether or not there was a genetic force at work and what
And whether or not Darwin was true, that, right? So let's they came to a decision and they said, yeah, we got to start sorting out the human weeds
of society. But 60,000 is a pretty large number. And
that's what they admit
it
to.
was actually growing during the 30s. But at the same time, and I'm trying to weave together scientific advance with social attitudes here, which is what you were all interested in. At the same time, during the 30s, the reason for sterilizing people changed. And this calls on the first of two themes that are actually very relevant to the current election process that's going on. Immigration and the treatment of women.
Oh, well, always.
And I did deep archival work on this for a book I wrote.
This is every college in America.
But the
always
archival
got,
work shows that until about 1927, 1910 to 1927, by a factor of about 5 or 6 to 1, the sterilizations were done on men. Now, there's a couple of very simple reasons for that. It's a lot easier to sterilize a man than a woman. And it was technologically challenging. The cutting of the fallopian tube as a form of sterilization was only actually well developed about 1938. Before that, it was a total hysterectomy, and there was a significant death rate associated with it. Much easier to cut the spermatic cord. But in the 30s, as the technologies improved, and this is very important, and Cold Spring Harbor played a very positive role in this regard, as the understanding emerged that this notion of a single gene cause of complex traits could not be supported. There was a shift in intellectual, whatever it might be, in some cases poverty. If we knew that couldn't be true, why did the programs continue for another 10 years? And the most difficult problem I've had in researching the history of this has been, why didn't scientists in a more organized way speak out to refute these ongoing practices? There certainly must have been a large cohort that understood it, what they were scientifically flawed ideas. And there were a few well-known scientists who did speak out. But
you're
when
covering
you think
up
about
a
the role
racist
that our
past.
leading scientists have today in setting policy, things like the Silomar conference back in the 70s to worry about the escape of recombinant organisms, other commonly held conferences to try and set policy, you see no evidence of that back in the 30s. Maybe the institution of science just had to mature a little further. Now, a couple of other things I'd like to say to put this in context for you has to do with placing the eugenics movement in an international context. I've already told you what eugenics is, but let me say a word about movement. How dare and on what basis would I claim that this is a movement? Well, I alluded to one thing already, and that is the vast number of bills proposed in state legislatures. That doesn't happen. You don't have hundreds of bills proposed if there isn't much at work in the land of thinking about this. For some of the research I did, I forget whether it was 1905 or 1906, but thereabouts. But that it exists today is, I think, troubling to all of us. Now, before I turn to the future, because I want to have lots of time to talk with you, I want to say a word about the other theme I mentioned that was relevant to the presidential race, and that's immigration. I think it's fair to say that at least for one half of the parties running for president, immigration is a major issue. There was a time, and we, of course, are a nation of immigrants, as you all know, but there was a time coincidental with the...
You know what immigration hurts? Women.
So in the last part of the talk, and this is the one where I really particularly would like to engage you, I want you to turn back to the question that I posed at the start, which was a question about what role society or an individual should have in judging or influence the reproductive freedom or activities of other human beings. And I want to, and it's probably the most important thing I can tell you about today, because the past is the past, and what I'm about to raise are issues that are very relevant to the future of your children and grandchildren. We have a new technology emerging. I think it is a certainty that it will come to play. I can't tell you exactly when, but bear with me because this is the one technical part of my talk, so I have to explain it to you. Prenatal diagnosis has been available in the United States since about 1973. As you know, it began with a search in older women of whether or not a woman was carrying a child with Down syndrome. So that was some 43 years ago. Interestingly, we have not budged an inch the number of children born each year with Down syndrome. And it's because of demographic shifts in the age at which people are having children. As more older women have children, they're producing a larger cohort of Down syndrome fetuses that offset some of the technology.
That something about that whole, no, we'll just wait until we get older.
Genome amplification, you can ask about any rare monogenic disorder you want and get an answer. But it's not that simple, because we don't have, for a lot of these disorders, enough clinical data to be able to predict the real outcome of the fetus or the child. I remember living through this in the 80s or 90s when I was counseling women who learned that their fetus had spina bifida, a term I think most of you know.
So there's still some need for eugenics?
On April 23rd, 1973, Herbert Giglotto and his wife Evelyn were sleeping in their home in Collinsville, Illinois. Suddenly they were awakened when they heard a loud crash, which happened to be their door being smashed off its hinges. He and his wife were terrified. "My God, we're dead," Giglotto said. "The hippies have come to kill us." The intruders grabbed Giglotto, knocked him to the floor, and pressed a gun against his temple. Another man in the gang yelled at him, "Where's it at? Where's it at?" While these men were yelling and holding a gun at Giglotto, another man had a shotgun aimed at his wife. He yelled to Giglotto, "Who's the whore in the bed?" Giglotto tried to answer, but the man holding a gun against his head stopped him. "You son of a bitch, you move and you're dead." The intruders started ransacking the house. They smashed furniture, they pulled out dresser drawers and dumped the contents on the floor. They pulled pictures off the wall. Whatever they were looking for was nowhere to be found. After an hour, they started gathering their things to leave. "That's it?" Giglotto asked them, a mixture of fury and terror. "You just kicked in my door, threatened my life, called my wife a whore and a bitch. Can you explain to me why you did this?" The man who was apparently in charge of the gang turned to Giglotto and knocked him to the floor again. "Shut your mouth, boy," was the last thing he said before he and his thugs left. As it would turn out, these men left Giglotto's house and kicked down the door of Donald Askew and his wife, Virginia. They repeated their terror tactics on the Askews, upsetting Virginia so much that she spent weeks after the event in the psychiatric ward of the local hospital. Again, they found nothing, and again, they left without an apology. These men were not hippies, as you can probably guess. These were agents of the Office of Drug Abuse Law Enforcement, which had only just been formed. The no-knock raids they used on the Giglottos and Askews were only recently made legal as part of Nixon's tough-on-crime policies. They were searching...
Wow, they are about to get tough on crime. So everything is a Star Fort city. We know the Bible is true. Everything is the mud flood was Armageddon. It's a flat earth nation. It's time to live it. It's time to practice the faith. Shock, surprise, spook to find out something like adrenochrome is real in the world. Remember that from my last reading? Did I read this earlier, or was this written for today? Shock, surprise, spook to find out something like adrenochrome exists and can be purchased. The situation is simple in facts. You've heard of it. I'm still talking about adrenochrome. The people in charge use it. No one denies that it's out there. And there are people that buy it and ingest it. Oh, now we know there's tunnels in Tom Hanks' house because another Roman Catholic doesn't like their version of Roman Catholic, so the Tucker Carlson, Mel Gibsons are going to save us now? No, it's run for your lifetime. It's not be involved in the city. Don't go to the protest. Something as simple as like all grandmas are invited to January 6th to protest an election. And next thing you know, I think that some of them ended up in jail. They're going to start killing you. You think the lockdowns are over? You think I'm doing this because one more time, maybe sometime in the future, I'm going to say, "Where's my money?" It's not going to happen. I'm only going to be telling you the truth. Because me and my friends are called to have your best interest at heart. You know it's true. It's a flat earth nation. The golden age is past because the mud flood was Armageddon. After that 1,000-year reign, there was another reaping, and now you're orphan train. It's what we've been telling it the longest and the loudest. And because you don't want to leave the Trinity behind, it's not important to you. Well, for that, I can say many are called, few are chosen, and thank goodness we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. aloha, arrivederci, ciao, sayonara, auf Wiedersehen, nagaman. That's